Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the number one liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I am, I'm kind of in a very odd mood tonight. Spent a lot of time over the past couple of days since we last met, watching some of the meltdown on the socials because of some things that I'm going to talk about tonight. So hang on close for that. But before I really get going here, let's go ahead and start off tonight with our wonderful Pledge of Allegiance. So please, those of you who are of a mind to stand up, take your hats off, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, folks. Let's get into it tonight. Tonight I am drinking Walcott. I am drinking Walcott. It is a Kentucky-made whiskey, right? Is that what they call it? No, they might call it bourbon. Yeah, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. That's what they call it. Well, Kentucky's almost always bourbon, I should say, but I know that bourbon has to be, in order to be called Kentucky bourbon, it has to be done in a specific way, and that kind of stuff. So I know I'm going to have to look it up because I don't remember right off the top of my head, which doesn't surprise me any, because my brain seems to be failing a little bit sometimes due to age. Oh my gosh. Speaking of age, my daughter, I posted a picture on Facebook on my personal account, not the Whiskey Musings one, but on my personal account, that had to deal with posting a rose if you love your daughter. And of course I did. It was one of those memory things that, just popped up out of nowhere. Or that I had posted years ago. Well, anyway, I posted it and I tagged my daughter, and my daughter's comment coming back was love you too, Daddy-O. Daddy-O. Just Daddy-O. Anyway. In a barrel, more than 50% corn mash is what Nana of JJS says over on Rumble with regards to the bourbon piece of it. And Tommy made a comment. Earlier about something going on with what's happening at the I-40 at the Mississippi River Bridge. I have not heard that yet. Interesting. Anyway, well, I'll have to check that out and figure it out, see what's going on there. All right. So let's go ahead and get my wonderful sponsor out of the way. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore, not destroy, but restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government, as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following three key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC.whiskeymusings.online to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is IOTC.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC.whiskeymusings.online, or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Check this thing out. It is 1/8 of an inch, roughly, of saddle leather. The inside pages are tear and water resistant. And look at that binding. It goes all the way through. It is stitched all the way through the leather. It has, according to my wonderful rumblers, it has sexy rounded corners. And according to 3 Chevy, the comedic one of the group, all of the amendments are actually in numerical order, in ascending numerical order, using Roman numerals. It has a 100-year warranty against material defects and manufacturer workmanship. You can send it back to the manufacturer to fix or replace for free anytime in that 100 years. Head on over to constitution.whiskeymusings.online to get your copy today, and I guarantee you that the inside information is true and correct, because my youngest whiskey warrior was able to pass his civics badge exam for scouts using this as a primary source document. Go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online, and yes, it is liberal tears resistant because of the fact that it is buddy tested, buddy approved. Billy Eaton, not totally, but he bit it. Billy approved. And it is, like I said, my youngest whiskey warrior approved for the internal context. Go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Oh gosh, they're all going crazy over in the Rumble on this, and I appreciate your support. I know the Institution on the Constitution also appreciates it, and go and check them out today. That would be fantastic for you to do so. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next special thing that everybody loves. Of course, it is. Oh, did that not go off? What in the heck is going on here? Let's try that again. There we go. On this day in American history. And of course, on this day in American history, we read from, I forgot to grab my glasses, but we read from The American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. It is chock full of all kinds of little factoids and information. You can grab a copy for yourself, anywhere books are sold. And it is fantastic to have one on the shelf. So tonight we are going to talk about, because it is February 3rd, we're going to talk about the 4 chaplains of World War II. In the early hours on February 3rd, 1943, the U.S. Army troop ship Dorchester steamed through the icy waters of Torpedo Alley, some 100 miles off the coast of Greenland. Small little factoid, torpedoes back in World War I were considered mines, not the torpedoes that you know and love today in submarine movies. Just so you know that. The ship, carrying more than 900 men, was having a rough go of it. Winter winds screeched across the North Atlantic, and heavy seas pounded the bow. Beneath the frenzied surface lurked a German submarine. At 12:55 a.m., a torpedo ripped into the Dorchester's side, and immediately the ship started to sink. Desperate soldiers rushed topside, stumbling toward lifeboats and jumping overboard. Amid the confusion, 4 Army chaplains worked quietly and methodically, calming the soldiers, directing them toward lifeboats, and handing out life jackets. When they ran out, they took off their own life jackets and put them on other men. The 4 chaplains were of different faiths. A Jewish rabbi named Alexander Good, a Catholic priest named John Washington, and Protestant ministers George Fox and Clark Poling. They had joined the U.S. Army to tend to the spiritual needs of the troops. Now, in this hour of urgent need, they put their courage and their faith to work so others might live. As the ship slid beneath the surface, soldiers in the lifeboats took one last look at the Dorchester. They saw the 4 chaplains standing on the deck, arms linked, praying. Rescue ships plucked 230 men from the sea, but 672 died in the freezing Atlantic. The 4 chaplains were not among the survivors. They were always together, one of the soldiers later said. They carried their faith together. The 4 chaplains died as they lived, serving their country, their fellow men, and God. And that is tonight's On This Day in American History. Kind of an interesting little story and factoid. That is fantastic. Well, I mean, not for the 4 chaplains, but at least they stayed together and showed their faith for God above. We all are going to need that, I'm telling you, in this day and age, in our forefront the next several months, if not years, considering where we are at. We will all need that faith moving forward. All right. So on Wednesday, we honored the 3 soldiers, 3 Army soldiers that had died over in Jordan. And I wanted to let you guys know that as of Wednesday, there were no plans of Biden going to receive their bodies, but apparently that has occurred. Biden did show up and did receive their bodies. Now, I don't know. I don't think he looked at his watch. There is some video out about it, but at least he and his wonderful doctor wife, the doctor of all doctors, the greatest doctor that has ever doctored in the history of doctors, Dr. Jill Biden, were there to receive the 3 bodies coming back. Now, I don't know if anybody saw the video of the phone call that the Bidens, or at least Joe Biden, made to one of them. And he got on the phone and was talking to them. And unfortunately, you know, the family, sometimes in their grief, they didn't recognize what was going on. But Joe can't go in those situations by just simply, you know, saying, hey, I sympathize with you, our prayers are with you, you know, so on and so forth. Joe always has to try and compare himself with whoever he's talking to. It doesn't even matter what the thing was about, but or what the situation is about or whatever. But once again, he rolled out his son Bo and said that he had lost Bo in Iraq, which is a lie, and has always been a lie, and will continue to be a lie until Joe can actually stand up and say, you know, I lost my son due to brain cancer. He lost his son due to brain cancer after Bo left the service. For those of you that don't know, Bo actually left the service and was the Attorney General in, I believe it was Delaware, for some time, and that's how he got to know David Weiss, who is currently trying to prosecute, or attempting to look like he's trying to prosecute, Hunter Biden. Joe has a problem. Joe constantly, he as far as I can tell, he has no sympathy for these kinds of situations, and honestly, he can't get away from attempting to make everything about him. Now, that is classic narcissist behavior. But the thing about it is that Joe Biden is so gone in terms of his mind and his mental faculties that I don't even think that he has any recollection or any semblance of really completely understanding exactly everything that he's saying and doing. Some of the photos that came out of him standing on the tarmac, even there, he sort of looks a little confused and disgruntled. And so I just don't know for sure, realistically, if Joe can actually differentiate reality from fantasy and the figment of his imagination, because, of course, he trots out these lies, about his son dying in Iraq, about his trips on Amtrak, and the fact that his dad did all of these wonderful jobs, and his dad told him, hey, Joey, two men kissing is love, and all this other stuff. Pretty much just about any time Joe Biden opens up his mouth, he's kind of lying. I mean, he's been proven to be a liar and a plagiarist his entire career. And so why anybody would sit here and think that this man actually is able to have a cognitive conversation without lying or stretching the truth, if you want to put a little nicety on it, is kind of beyond me. And I sort of got off track there for this first article, but I just can't, I cannot understand, and I still can't understand that how anybody can even vote for this man. I really just cannot think as to how he can get even remotely the 30% of support that he currently is having in the polls. I think it's actually a bunch of crap. I think they're just making it look like the mainstream media is trying to cover it up for him again. But I digress. The whole point in all this is that the U.S. has decided to attack in the Middle East in response to the deaths of those 3 soldiers and the injuries sustained by, I believe it was something like 40 others. But anyway, here you can see that Friday strikes, so this was yesterday, they came less than a week after 3 Army reservists were killed by an Iran-backed militia attack in Jordan. One thing that I think folks need to really and truly understand here is that, some of these strikes, and I'm waiting to really see the what he struck and that kind of stuff. But people are already picking on him for this, because there was a report that came out, I think it was on Thursday, where the terrorists that we were going to attack here, they pretty much were essentially forewarned about the attacks. And that's been the common theme for this, is that they were forewarned about the attacks. And so what ended up happening is they got all their people out. So they're talking about potentially where the initial strikes, according to the piece here in Fox News, the initial strikes by manned and unmanned aircraft hit command and control headquarters. In a statement, U.S. Central Command said that forces conducted airstrikes on more than 85 targets in Iraq and Syria against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IGRC, Quds Force, and affiliated militia groups. Further on down, CENTCOM said that the attack came at 4 p.m. Eastern on February 2nd. President Biden put out a statement shortly after the strikes were confirmed, warning, if you harm an American, we will respond. This past Sunday, he goes on about the militant groups, the three being returned and that kind of stuff. But he continues on by saying, this afternoon at my direction, U.S. military forces struck targets at facilities in Iraq and Syria that the IRGC and affiliated militia used to attack U.S. forces. Our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. The United States does not seek conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else in the world, but let all those who might seek to do us harm know this: if you harm an American, we will respond. Okay. So, again, that's fine, but what, I mean, realistically, outside of this, what else are we going to be doing here? I mean, we've got to essentially, if we're going to get in, we got to get in. I mean, we can't just sit here and dink around with this stuff. Anyway, so we'll just have to kind of see. They're saying that they included the attacks, or the targets included command and control operations, intelligence centers, militia groups, rockets, missiles, and unarmed vehicle storages, and supply chain facilities. So yeah, there's no information in terms of any kind of actual body count or true casualties. So yeah. Anyway, and of course, as always, they keep talking about how Iran, or we don't want to have war in the Middle East, and we're not interested in that. And well, guess what? Iran isn't either. I mean, Iran doesn't. They don't want war with us. They talk a whole good game, but they don't want war with us. And assuming, of course, that if they did announce it, or at least tell Iran, hey, this is where we're going and this is what we're going to do, that's not really, it isn't very effective, because it gives that group time to go ahead and, clean up their act before they actually go and get attacked. So yeah, that's just, I don't know. This is just crazy. You shouldn't even be telling anybody about this. It should just happen. But anyway, so, I had to report on that, because that is one of the bigger news that's out there, in terms of the Middle East. Once again, things are heating up. They're getting hotter in one of the theaters of operations. All right, let's move back locally here, because of course some of that could be considered a distraction for what we have here going on at the border, which of course is the biggest news and the biggest thing that's hitting Biden below the belt, really, in terms of things. I mean, nobody is happy about the immigrants. Nobody is happy about the situation that they're in. And in fact, immigrants are even running around and attacking our cops in New York City and getting off scot-free. I've got a little bit more information on that. But one of the biggest things that is out there on this entire situation is the fact that Biden went on camera when he was caught, or, asked a question on his way to going into the helicopter, I think, to fly off and go wherever it is that he goes to. And he was asked the question about closing the border and why he can't do it under executive orders right now. And of course, he immediately stated, I need more legislation. I need more money. Well, the reality of it is that he actually needs a spine, not more legislation to shut down the border. And this is the headline in another Fox News article. And the thing about it is that we go through this and we try to figure this out. But apparently, Trump had the border secured. Trump had the border secured. He had it secured, and it was even backed up and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2018 in the Trump versus Hawaii over this so-called travel ban that was issued by former President Donald Trump. So the Biden political allies, this is a reading from the piece, the Biden political allies will no doubt remember, since they led the charge against it, Trump shut down the border to aliens from certain terrorists and other nations until the Department of Homeland Security could determine whether it was able to accurately verify and investigate the backgrounds of aliens from those countries. Trump acted under Title 8 U.S. Code, Section 1182, which states that when the president finds that the entry of any aliens or class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens. And sorry about that. There goes Mrs. Whiskey is at the door. Trump also, according to the piece, acted in pursuant to Title 8 U.S. Code 1185, which provides that the president can set the rules, regulations, and orders for entry of aliens into the U.S. subject to such limitations and exceptions as the president may prescribe. So again, the Supreme Court upheld the travel ban, since these existing immigration statutes give deference to the president to decide when the entry of an alien should be restricted and provide him with ample power to impose entry restrictions, in addition to those already outlined in federal immigration law. So there you go. There is the answer to this immigration problem. Trump did it, and he did it legally. He did it constitutionally. He did it within the law. And Biden is refusing to do that. He is consistently saying, I need more money. I need more, I need Congress to tell me what to do. So realistically, all he's doing is he's punting it back to Congress. Now, of course, Congress, all over the socials and everything else, Congress has been talking, even some of the people in Congress has been talking about the fact that, they need to pass some sort of border legislation that the Senate is putting together. What they seem to forget is that H.R. 2, passed by the House, has been sitting on the Senate's desk for their consideration, and Schumer just ignores it and doesn't even bring it to the floor for a vote or anything else. These people seem to think that we the people are completely stupid. They just don't get it. And they sit here and they say that we Trump supporters and maggots, as they call us, MAGA people, are completely moronic and idiots. We're not. We're the ones that are calling him out on all of this stuff. He can do it. He can do it tomorrow. And you know what's really freaking amazing is the fact that if he did it, he would, in essence, take an attacking chess piece off the board for Trump and the Republicans. By securing the border, he literally could stop the ridicule on the immigration crisis immediately. and he won't do it for some odd reason. He just won't do it. And, you know, honestly, that is actually one of the biggest things outside of the economy. That is one of the biggest things that he is being attacked on, and why his approval ratings are in the toilet. I got some more on the immigration stuff here in just a minute, but I wanted to announce that, hey, remember on Wednesday there was somebody, and I know who this is. I'm not going to call her out, but there was somebody in the chat that was looking for a gator, and they went to my wonderful website, fantastic website, store.whiskeymusings.online, because they wanted a Whiskey Musings logo gator. They were going to use it for another purpose, but they wanted the gator, and they hollered at me through email and said, hey, I want the gator. I want the gator. Well, guess what? I found out what happened with the gator, and I got it put back on the store.whiskeymusings.online page. So head on over to store.whiskeymusings.online and you can pick up a Whiskey Musings logo gator or any other fantastic products that are available, like hoodies, other sweatshirts, you know, crew neck sweatshirts, things like that, t-shirts, tank tops. There's racer back tanks for the ladies. There's also jogger pants. There is ladies yoga, like yoga stretchy pants. There's all kinds of stuff out there. And, you know, it's funny. I actually emailed this individual back and let her know where this was. So I don't know if she doesn't check her email very often or if it ended up in her spam folder, but I did respond within the 24 hours that I told her I would do. And she went ahead and she's now got it. It is, in fact, because of the fact that I put the gator back on the setup, it is the first item in the featured products page right up here in the top left corner of the thing. So anyway, there you go. I got the gator back up put on the website. Go and check out store.whiskeymusings.online and pick up one of these fantastic products that has not only my logo, but also my motto, when I drink, I think Whiskey Musings. And it is, it's a fantastic site. You can pick up all sorts of stuff here, but go and check it out. And of course, a small portion of the proceeds comes to the show and supports the show. So once again, go to store.whiskeymusings.online and pick up your Whiskey Musings logo. Show that Whiskey Musings, Whiskey Warrior P1 pride by heading over to store.whiskeymusings.online and get yours today. And there you go. I took care of that for you. I won't say who, but I took care of it. All right. So continuing on with the idea of the immigration, I know everybody has heard about that set of immigrants, and I'm not sure. I can't remember if it's like 4 or 5 or whatever. But this pack of immigrants, and believe me, it's not just immigrants, but many other people, you know, many other punk kids and punks, just complete gang type behavior, they attack in packs. And in this particular case, I'm not going to run any video, but there was a couple of police officers in New York that were trying to apprehend, I think, one of these immigrants for some reason, and they ended up being attacked by a pack of them. They got beat up pretty good. And they got, stepped on and kicked and all kinds of stuff. The video itself is actually a little disturbing if you get the opportunity to see it. But the thing that made national news was not the fact that happened, but it was also the fact that within 24 hours, they were released immediately back onto the street. Now, You saw, if you watch the Dan Bongino show and so on and so forth, they went ahead and, were released. And as they were coming out to the press, a couple of the immigrants basically gave what would be considered the number one hand salute. Number one hand salute, the I'm going to give you the family-friendly version of the double-barreled middle finger, but they were basically flipping off the press. Well, now this just released in the New York Post. Apparently, those migrants are now gone. They were released. And now they've decided to flee the state, according to this article in the New York Post. 4 border-busting thugs freed without bail after kicking 2 cops around Times Square. They promptly go into the wind. Who would have dreamed that cop fighters with no jobs, no community ties, and thus no reason to hang around to face criminal charges that could send them to prison for years would choose to bolt? Okay? Which is what the Venezuelans, so these were Venezuelan folks, asylum seekers, and they give their names. There's 4 of them, age 24 and younger, between 19 and 24. They apparently seem to have left the state. So there were at least 8, but those 4 were the original ones, the first to be flushed through the system. And again, this is Democrat policy here, folks. You just go and you create them. You commit a crime, and if you're either a Democrat supporter, BLM, Antifa, or an illegal immigrant, the justice system doesn't apply to you. You get released, and there you go. You're gone. Yeah. So the progressives immediately go and drop these people back on the street. My own city that's closest to me here, Seattle, is having a problem with murders, and it's being committed by offenders that have gone through the system at least once and are being released under progressive policies. They just don't want, they don't want to, this whole concept that cops are bad and the justice system is rigged and so on and so forth. Well, now it's rigged the other way, because apparently you can go and commit murder and just leave and get nothing about it. Or the other alternative too is the fact that you can go to New York City, steal a whole bunch of stuff, and then head to Florida. But you don't. When you head to Florida, you don't steal anything in Florida. You want to know why? Because in Florida they actually enforce the law. They send you to jail. Yeah, this image, if you're on the audio portion of the program on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or any of those, you might want to head on over to Rumble and take a look. There's a photo of one of the immigrants leaving the station after being released, and he's got his finger blurred up or blurred out. So yeah. Anyway, a law enforcement officer was actually on a CNN program, and he told those CNN folks that illegal immigrants are deterred by Florida's laws and do not look upon the state as a safe haven in which to commit crime sprees. John Miller, chief of law enforcement and intelligence analyst, told CNN that among the 175,000 illegal immigrants that have flooded into New York City in recent months, there is a criminal element that looks at a different opportunity here. These individuals, I went over their rap sheets yesterday, multiple charges: grand larceny, robbery, attempted robbery, grand larceny. These men are who DA Alvin Bragg has sought fit to release without bail. Miller said this particular crew operates on mopeds and scooters. They were doing organized retail theft. They were doing snatches on the street, iPhones, iPads, clothing, so on and so forth. One of them that they are still seeking has 10 charges on one day because he's part of a pattern that's been going on. Miller continued, I'm looking at the dates when their arrest started, which is probably close to when they got here. They've only been here a couple of months. So what the detectives are telling me is that they have crews here that are operating in New York, do all of their stealing. Then they go to Florida to spend the money. And then they come back. And Miller said that officers told him that as to the question as to why they don't just stay in Florida and steal there, officers told him it's because when you steal in Florida, you go to jail. Oh, that shut up CNN host Erica Hill. She basically had nothing to say. You know, it's amazing to me how many people sit there and they think that, oh, these people, you know, they do all these, they've had such a rough life. Let's go easy on them. I'm sorry, but no. Throw the book at them. I mean, first of all, to even imagine, to even think that these people who are here illegally are not going to steal, rob, rape, murder, whatever. They already broke the law in getting here. So what makes you think that they have any qualms about stealing or doing any other crimes, or even worse, after coming here? They already broke the law. They don't care. They feel, thanks to the Biden administration, they feel like they are just a free-for-all, that they can do whatever they want and they're going to get off scot-free. You think that these people don't already know this? That they don't already know that when they come across the border, they get handed a phone and a card and they get food and shelter for a little while and then, you know, are just going to get released into the country? You don't think that information hasn't made it through the underground all around the world? Joe Biden owns this. Joe Biden owns this entire thing. You cannot sit here and unfortunately, you know, the Dems are trying to spin it and say it's the Republicans' problem, but the American people, the smart people like you and me and all other patriotic Americans who are out there who are a lot smarter than we're given credit for, we all know, we see through the facade now, Joe. We see through the facade. You got your chance and you screwed it up. Yeah. Anyway. Well, apparently Joe Biden is attempting to shore up his image a little bit. Okay. And by that, I mean, he has taken, now today, for those of you that don't know, today is February 3rd. February 3rd was when that train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. And apparently now Joe Biden has decided to make good on his promise that he made back in March of 2023 that he's going to go. He's going to go to East Palestine. But apparently this article came out in the Daily Signal. And, yeah. They're now being critical of Biden's EPA. That's the Environmental Protection Agency. And in this article, this House candidate, the guy's running for, he's the Republican runner for the House. He's a representative. Biden's EPA has acted like a Gestapo, mistreated Ohio residents in East Palestine cleanup, this House candidate says. Now, the Republican candidate that I'm talking about is, I got to find his name here, Dr. Rick Tsai, Tsai, who's running for the House seat vacated when Representative Bill Johnson resigned last month to become president of the Youngstown State University. Rick Tsai blasted the EPA and the federal government during an appearance on WMAL FM radio's The Vince Colonnese show in Washington. Tsai said, quote, "I don't think the world knows the truth about what happened here and is still going on in East Palestine. He told, officials warned, sorry, that was a quote. Officials warned of a possible catastrophic blast at the train derailment site on February 6th and carried out a controlled burn of the chemicals, according to the Cincinnati Enquirer back then. Of course, we all know what happened. But Tsai has done his own testing of local creeks, saying that he's found elevated levels of benzene, according to Cleveland's WKYC TV. Tsai continued and said, as of yesterday or the day before, Ann Vogel of the Ohio EPA was saying they have no evidence of chemicals in our land or a creek. I can give a 7-year-old a stick and teach him how to find these chemicals. I don't know how the EPA doesn't do it with their millions of dollars at, their beck and call. Former President Donald Trump, for those of you that don't remember, went in February in 2023 and donated a whole bunch of bottled water and pallets of supplies to assist the residents in the town. Well, now Biden has announced that he is going there. He's going to the site. It's a little too late. And in fact, even the, I think it's the mayor of the town told somebody as well that, told some reporter as well that he could care less if Biden showed up. In fact, he would appreciate it if Biden showed up after he is no longer president in February of 2025. Okay, well, obviously, I mean, Biden's just making friends all over the place. He's making friends everywhere. I'm being sarcastic for those of you that don't hear it in my voice. Oh, this guy is just such a train wreck, literally. But anyway, speaking of presidents and things not going the Democrats' way, have you seen that the cases against Trump have all kind of hit some sort of a snag? I mean, you've got the case in New York where Bragg is he's overseeing that, and apparently that one's kind of on hold. They haven't really done anything. There hasn't been any forward motion on that at all. You've got the case down in Florida, which doesn't seem to have moved forward. And in fact, the judge in the case, Eileen Cannon, has indicated that the trial date will actually potentially be after the election, even though they've been pushing, the Democrats and the prosecution have been pushing to have that trial as soon as possible. And she is kind of fighting back on it, which, of course, that's to the left's chagrin on all of that. But here's the thing. We also know about the Georgia case, the Georgia state case. Now, for those of you that don't remember, the president can only pardon for federal crimes. He cannot pardon for state level crimes. And so if Trump gets into office, he can still be held liable or held to the state crime level, and he doesn't have like that, easy get out of jail free card. But as most of you who are paying attention to this, I know that I've mentioned it on this program. I know several other political pundits, Dan Bongino, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Sean Parnell, they all have talked about the fact that Fani Willis, or I think it's called Fanny, I don't know, if I can't remember how it's pronounced. She has a particular way of pronouncing it, but anyway, she had a relationship with the actual prosecutor in the Trump case. Now, there have been conversations back and forth about the possibility that Fanny and the whole case might get kicked out because of the fact that the improper relationship of the two has come to light. Now, for a while there was a question as to whether or not Fanny was also going to say whether or not she was, going to actually admit to it. But according to this article in the Daily Wire, she has finally admitted that she has had a relationship with the prosecutor in the Trump case. She admitted this yesterday, that she had a personal relationship with the man that she hired as the special prosecutor in the criminal election case against former President Donald Trump. Wade apparently paid for Willis to accompany him on at least 2 trips in 2022 and 2023. And after Willis had already hired him to oversee the RICO case against Trump in the court filings. She claimed in a 176-page court filing that any personal relationship among members of the prosecution team does not amount to a disqualifying conflict of interest or otherwise harm a criminal defendant, the Washington Post reported. Okay, so here's the thing. There is a law in Georgia that is specifically mentions cases where if there is improper conduct and that conduct can potentially demonstrate that the prosecutor gains by keeping the case or by winning the case, that there could be a potential conflict of interest in an issue in terms of the state law. Now, there's some other phrases and things like that. There's some other things that have to go on with this, but as I reported or mentioned on Wednesday's show, Jim Jordan has sent out a official subpoena for her to come and explain herself with this entire thing up in front of the House Judicial Committee. Now, whether or not that actually is really going to go anywhere, I honestly, I don't think so, because this is a state case and Jim Jordan is federal. So I don't think there's really a lot of there for that to actually do anything. However, this kind of scenario, and especially because of the fact that Wade took money from her office and then in turn turned it around and paid for lavish vacation trips and trips on cruises for her and Wade, that seems to be a potential where keeping the case, whether the case is real or not, keeping the case on track is a benefit for Fani Willis. And so in a bit of a roundabout way, one could argue that this is actually beneficial to the prosecutor, regardless of the outcome of the case. That by keeping the case alive and being able to spend that kind of money is beneficial to her. And so that could, granted, it's maybe reaching a little bit in terms of the letter of the law, or the spirit of the law, I should say, in Georgia. But one could certainly argue that by keeping this on with this guy and him overcharging, by the way, reports have come out that he was paid far and above what other consultants on the case have been paid, and that he himself doesn't have any judicial experience or prosecutorial experience in this area. So, even though it has nothing really to do with the case, it still has a large impact on the people who are involved. And so while it may not end up in a direct dismissal, it certainly brings up certain aspects of ethics violations and questionable actions by the DA, which I believe, and I don't know this for certain, but I've heard rumors that the state legislature in Georgia is also going to open up an investigation into her. And if that happens, that comes to fruition, that could actually cause a bit of a huge problem for this entire situation. Well, you know, the thing about it is, regardless of whether it's legally improper or can legally block everything, there's always the public eye and the appearance of impropriety in these cases, with regards to this entire situation. And so even some of the leftists are starting to notice this and making questions. CNN had a guy, senior legal analyst and former prosecutor, Eli Honig, stated on CNN's Friday's broadcast of the AC 360, he indicated that Fani Willis should actually step aside and recuse herself from the case. And he also mentioned too that that not only should Fani recuse herself, but also Wade should do it voluntarily. And Honig also answered a question. So the question by the guest host, Jim Shudo, asked very quickly on Fani Willis, should she recuse herself and step down after all this? And Honig answered, absolutely. I think if she doesn't do it voluntarily, there's a good chance the judge forces her to do it. I read her response today. It doesn't, in my mind, answer the key questions. Not about the relationship. It doesn't matter to me if they're having a romantic relationship or just some other relationship, but about the flow of money, the potential conflict of interest, and her, I believe, wildly improper statements that she's made publicly that are going to prejudice the jury pool. I think she should step aside, and if she doesn't, there's a good chance the judge forces it. So here we are, once again, we're in a situation where, you know, this kind of is going Trump's way. And again, thankfully, this was one of the accused that, as a part of that RICO group, that they're going and bringing that around and basically saying that, hey, even if she isn't guilty, you know, even if she's cleared of any charges, it still potentially could taint the jury pool and make it to where the jury thinks that her, again, on the mere appearance of impropriety could become a bit of a problem. And potentially Trump could call for, or the judge could call for a mistrial on the fact that the jury pool was tainted. So this, I mean, again, she needs to do the right thing. She needs to back down. Wade probably needs to back down too. And they should assign a new lawyer to it. And even if she doesn't, it still provides a potential court of appeals review of anything that comes out of this. I mean, it's sort of like the whole E. Jean Carroll thing, where E. Jean Carroll, the judge there, had a prior relationship with E. Jean Carroll's attorney. They had a prior mentor-mentee relationship that came out here recently. Not even mentioning the whole thing with regards to the fact that her dress wasn't even available when she said when she said the incident happened. She couldn't describe the place where it happened. She couldn't even figure out which year it happened in. You know, there's so many holes in her story that if if there had been an actual impartial judge and an impartial jury, it never would have made it that way as far as it did. And it's all most likely going to get overturned on an appeal anyway, which I'm fairly certain that if Trump is not doing it, I haven't really heard definitively. I think that he is. I think I've heard that he is, but he's going to appeal all of that. So, yeah. And the 83 million, by the way, far and above whatever's been put out for defamation ever. And that by itself alone is potential grounds for at least a review and a reduction in that money, because of the fact that, again, it's like multiple times over in terms of what anybody's ever gotten for that particular civilian case. And it always, it really is kind of pissing me off too, that everybody seems to, at least on the left, they all keep talking about how he's a convicted rapist. Folks, you cannot be convicted in a civil trial. There's no crime. There's no charge of criminality in a civil trial. You are found monetarily liable. That's essentially what it is. And not only that, but it wasn't even for rape. It was for sexual assault. So, again, he's not a rapist. He's not a convicted rapist. And I call people out on this every single time on social media for it. But hey, before I continue, instead of just listening to me, you should take a break from politics. It probably helps to ease your mind and helps relax you if you step away from the thing that most likely gets your blood pressure up. I know I should take my own advice. I seriously should. And that's why I am part of the True Grit Roots Network, TGRN.net. We have our first genre-specific channel called TGRN Blues, where we play blues 24/7, 365. You should go and check it out. And hey, while you are there, think about this. We have 2 fantastic daily programs that happen in the morning and at noon Central Time that are absolutely fantastic varieties. It is TGRN. The first one is the TGRN Morning Blues Cafe. That comes on at 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. And the Morning Blues Cafe is a soothing blend of blues to start your mornings. Again, it airs Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. Central to 8 a.m. Central Time. That is the Morning Blues Cafe. And then later on in the day, we have what's called your lunchtime special that comes on for an hour Monday through Friday, starting at noon Central, called the Blue Plate Special. Now, the Blue Plate Special is a fantastic little hour's worth of selected blues music by I won't say all, but many of our on-air personalities. Come have lunch with the Blues Crew, weekdays, Monday through Friday from noon to 1 Central Time, featuring tasty blues and R&B cuts from our kitchen. It is a great way to enjoy lunch together. Join hosts Vinnie Mariti, Jonathan Oogie Richards, Jeff Hayes, Holly Harris, and Memphis Mark for the Blue Plate Special on TGRN Blues. Check us out. Go to tgrn.net and download our app, or to listen in, or you can find us on not only our website, tgrn.net, you can just go there and start listening right away. We have it embedded in our website. But you can also find us in the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations. Once again, go to tgrn.net to check us out. Grab either our app or find us in the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations. tgrn.net, TGRN Blues out of Austin, Texas. And of course, I am part owner in that endeavor. And I showed the worldwide map on Wednesday. We are international blues station all over the world. And we thank you, of course, for listening. All right. So the last Trump trial that kind of made the liberal left go a little nuts on social media. Okay? And that was this announcement. So Judge Chutkan, which, of course, everybody on the left has all been talking about how Jack Smith is the killer. Jack Smith is the Trump master. He's going to take down Trump. He's going to be the guy who's going to put the final nail in the coffin of the Orange God King. Well, that's what they say. Well, Chutkan announced that the Trump's federal election trial has now been postponed indefinitely. And the reason being, believe it or not, has a lot to do with the fact that, first of all, Jack Smith's request up to the Supreme Court to jump the process, essentially, and hear the case with regards to Trump's immunity plea has basically... They kicked it back. SCOTUS said, yeah, no, we're not going to listen to it until the D.C. Court of Appeals gets it. Well, the D.C. Court of Appeals had a three-judge panel listen to it. And back in, I think it was early January. Let me see. And anyway, they've been sitting on it. The D.C. Court of Appeals hasn't issued a ruling yet. And so because they haven't issued a ruling, Judge Chutkan wrote an order where the court will set a new schedule if and when the mandate is returned. And by that, she is talking about the D.C. Court of Appeals. So she kept talking about how the initial March 4 trial date wouldn't hold. And they now finally, she now finally has said, yeah, this is, I don't know when this is going to happen. So special prosecutor, this is from a piece in the Epoch Times. Got to give a hat tip to them. Special prosecutor Jack Smith tried to block the delay by asking the U.S. Supreme Court to quickly issue a decision on whether President Trump is protected by presidential immunity in the election case. But the High Court rejected the special counsel's request, sending the case back to the D.C. Court of Appeals. And it is not clear when the D.C. Court of Appeals will render its decision, while legal analysts have previously said that the case might very well be pushed back until after the November election. A three-judge panel for the court heard oral arguments over the immunity case in early January. Yeah. So... things are not going well in the Trump cases. Let's just put it that way. I'm sorry, but I told you. I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so. It's not like I have some clairvoyancy or anything else, but to try and sit here and clearly attempt to use the judicial system as a election interference tool is not going to get you anywhere. And even in the best of circumstances, their attempts to do this over and over and over again, it's just hilarious to watch them melt down the minute that they go ahead and they think that they got him, and he somehow, some way slips away in some sense of the case. I mean, let's just, the only thing that they've been able to get him on is the E. Jean Carroll thing. And even that's going to probably slip away for them. So, I get ready for the liberal cheers, folks, in November of 2024. Get ready for it. I'm just telling you, get ready for it. That's all I am saying. All right. So one thing that every single, representative of government, one thing that they all have to do, and this even includes like being in the military, it has filtered down into places like cities and states for the police officers, etc., and that is they have to give an oath of office. And it's senators, House of Representatives, they all have to do this, okay? It's constitutionally mandated for the federal government in particular, and especially for the president. And then, of course, they put in they put in the Constitution. They said, oh, by the way, senators and Republican or representatives all have to do this too. Something similar to what the president uses. Well, here's the thing. They all have to swear an oath. Most of the time, it says that they have to support and potentially protect or defend or do something with the United States Constitution. And so here's the question that I think a lot of people don't seem to bother trying to figure out, is whether or not someone who enters into one of those said offices, who cannot swear an oath of allegiance to the United States Constitution for whatever reason, whether it's a religious exemption or whether it is the fact that they aren't even a U.S. citizen, really, I think begs the question as to whether or not they can actually serve in office for that particular position. And this is my stance when it even comes to things like having illegal immigrants serve in our military in order to go and gain citizenship. They don't have an allegiance to the United States. They don't have an allegiance to the Constitution. They don't have any kind of an allegiance to this country, and yet they're going to serve in the armed forces. They're going to raise their right hand, and they're going to swear an allegiance to something that they cannot physically give. This is the same for our representatives. And this is specifically towards certain representatives who are out there right now. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Ilhan Omar in particular. I don't know if anybody has seen this, and even some other members of the squad, but Ilhan Omar had a video that surfaced this week by End Wokeness. They found a clip where during a 2022 trip to Somalia, Ilhan Omar actually revealed her political goal. And what she said during a speech in Somalia was that she wanted to move back to Somalia after using Congress to rebuild it. She basically said that she is using her political position to build up Somalia. She's using her political position in Congress to funnel money to another foreign country that she plans on coming back to. So where is the allegiance to the United States? And where is her allegiance to upholding the Constitution, knowing that this is specifically what she is doing? I'm telling you, people, the enemy is here. The enemy is already here. We've allowed them to come in. We've allowed them to show up, and we're allowing them to do things in our government that should not be done. I don't understand why this video can't instigate, and maybe it will, I don't know, it's a little early, but can't instigate a investigation into not only how she came here, but also how she became an American citizen, and how she reportedly, there's evidence that she gamed the immigration system. But to have her serve in Congress after admitting that her whole point in being in Congress is to funnel American money back to Somalia to help them build up. This is just nuts. This is just crazy. There definitely needs to be an investigation in this. Here's what she said in a quote. I am an American migrant in the U.S. Congress, but I am a Somali girl, a girl with your lineage, a girl with your language, a girl with your religion. That was a young child taken from her country, that misses her country and wishes to live there and share with its people. I am hopeful in the future that me and my children will be able to raise our kids in this land where I was born and raised. To make that move possible, there is a lot we need to work on together to make our land more stable and prosperous. Yeah. Then what are you doing in Congress? Obviously, you're there for nefarious reasons. But if she wants to be a Somali girl and her allegiances, and this is the key, is her allegiances are to Somali? Yeah. Sorry. To Somalia? Then she can't, by all logical definition, swear an allegiance to the oath to the Constitution of the United States. She can't do it because her allegiances are here. In fact, when you go through the naturalization process, you swear an oath that you take without any reservation or ties to any other country. Any other country you have no allegiances to. This is part of the argument where people are talking about the whole, naturalization babies, like coming across the border and having a baby here allows you to stay here because of the term natural born citizen. There's legal arguments that are out there with regards to this, where a natural born citizen actually also includes parents that have no ties to other countries is the only way that you can be considered a natural born citizen. And yet here we have people serving in our government who have no tie and no allegiance to just the United States of America. You know, the U.S. doesn't even recognize dual citizenship. Other countries do, but the U.S. technically doesn't. And thank you, 3 Chevy. I appreciate that. Anchor babies is the terminology for it. But even other countries allow dual citizenship, but the U.S. does not officially recognize it. As a part of your naturalization process, you have to give up all ties to your old country before you can become an American citizen. Or at least that's the oath that you swear, that you say without reservation that you are coming here and you swear an allegiance only to the United States of America. She's obviously violated that. She plans on violating it. Anyway. All right, so moving away from America into the international scene, something occurred that I don't think anybody really realized on this here recently. But, you know, I've been telling you about the Chinese and the Chinese being a threat to our country and everything else. I've talked to you about the buildup of the military, their Navy, moves that they are making in the Pacific, in particular going against going against potentially taking over Taiwan and so on and so forth. Well, that isn't the only play. Oh, by the way, they've been buying up land here, and even Florida. Florida, by the way, just for those of you that don't know, I didn't include this article, but apparently a Florida court has taken up and paused the Florida law where a non-U.S. citizen cannot own land in Florida. A Florida court has decided to put a pause on that law. So we'll have to watch that and see where that goes in terms of, anyone who is not a U.S. citizen cannot own land in Florida. That was the intent. In particular, it was against the Chinese, but anyway, So the Chinese themselves, they're not only building up their navy, they're not only building up their army, they're not only building up their military, they're also building up, apparently, their hacking operations. This from Defense One. Chinese hacking operations have entered a far more dangerous phase, the U.S. warns. One official was quoted as saying, "This is truly an everything, everywhere, all at once scenario." So, according to the piece, Chinese cyber activity is moving beyond the last decades of just spying and data theft toward actually direct attacks on U.S. critical infrastructures. The directors of the FBI, NSA, and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, told lawmakers this past Wednesday. The Volt Typhoon hacking group is planting malware on network routers and other internet-connected devices that, if triggered, could disrupt water, power, and rail services, possibly causing widespread chaos or even injuring and killing Americans, all those groups said. So we know that Russia is known for cyber attacks and that cause like real-world harm. Targeting of U.S. political campaigns, Ukrainian power plants we heard about. But China is typically not been that kind. They've mostly been into stealing intellectual property, cyber theft, government information, and that kind of stuff. But instead, this hacking group called Volt Typhoon, that, like I was saying, planting malware, is stepped up the game. Now, it's kind of interesting that this article came out because of the fact that I saw another article. Now, I was only interested in it because of my day job, which happens to deal with, networking and IT. But Ars Technica reported that Chinese malware was actually removed from SOHO, which stands for Small Office Home Office, routers after the FBI goes and issues some covert commands. Apparently, these routers were being used to conceal attacks on critical infrastructure. So this article is in reference to the other article that I just read you with regards to the fact that China is kicking up their game, quote unquote, as you will, for this. Now, these particular SOHO routers were mainly Cisco and Netgear devices that have reached their end of life. For those of you that don't understand, every so often a particular piece of software or a particular piece of hardware will go into what's called an end of life cycle, meaning that the company is no longer going to issue patches and security patches for these things. Now, in most cases, in like commercial markets, we pay attention to that crap. And we know that when things like that happen, we try to get rid of anything in our environment. But in the commercial sphere, where you personally are there, you guys pretty much, you can accuse me of this too. You go and you put in a device and if it operates for 10, 15, 20 years and meets your needs, you don't ever bother with it ever again. In fact, most of the time, people in a home office location, most of the time you don't even bother with like updates and things like that. So this is really, really concerning, especially for those of you who are in the IT space. And so I would just recommend you go and take a look at these things and see what's out there. And yeah, I have older devices too. I mean, sometimes it's like, hey, it's working. Why would I update it? But the reality of it is that there's reasons why you have to update it. Sometimes code can get old and be exploited. There's ways that it can get exploited. I mean, again, when you have that Windows machine that's running Windows XP, and here we're on to Windows 11. Well, yeah, you better think about at least upgrading the OS or keeping it off of the internet as a whole. But anyway, so apparently, yeah, now what's even more kind of disconcerting with this, and I'll get to the question of the week here in a minute, But what's even more disconcerting to this is the fact that the FBI actually issued commands in owned property. I mean, the FBI basically broke into a private person's device and issued a command. Now, granted, it was for a good reason, okay? And, you know, some people would be like, hey, that sounds great, but do we really trust the FBI to go ahead and do this kind of thing? I mean, don't you think they should have contacted those folks and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we need to do. And, you know, that kind of stuff. After the events of 2020, I don't know if I'd necessarily trust the FBI not to like drop something on my computer or my router to listen in on my stuff. Yeah, that just kind of makes it a little odd. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and I'll just leave that one with you guys. So let's go ahead and move on to questions for whiskey. And tonight's question was submitted by good old Rumble's Buddy Weiser. And here's what Buddy wrote to me. Greetings to you. I hope this message finds you well and with stout spirits. Well, thank you for that. So here's the question, and I'm going to read it literally. All right. Was O'Biden in violation of the War Powers Act of 1973 when he ordered the military recently? So in other words, when he is ordering the military to attack, I'm paraphrasing here, ordering the military to attack places like the Houthis and that kind of stuff. All right, so that's the question. Here we go. Let me see if I can break this down for you. All right, so first of all, a quick synopsis of the War Powers Act of 1973. So for those of you that don't recall, the last time that Congress has actually issued a war declaration was in World War II. And that was when we issued a war declaration against Japan at first, and then, of course, to Germany and those kind of, you know, the axis of evil, let's say, during World War II. That is the actual last time that Congress has issued a declaration of war. Since then, we've had wars in Korea, we've had Vietnam, we've had Afghanistan, we've had Iraq, and so all of those things have been without formal declaration of the U.S. Congress. Now, for those of you who are constitutionalists like myself, you do realize that in Article 1, Section 8, the ability to make war is one of the focuses of Congress itself. Now, there actually is a division in terms of the focus of this with regards to declaring war and actually doing battles with war, because Congress is the only one that can declare war, but the president is named as the commander-in-chief of the military forces. So because of the wars in Korea and Vietnam in particular, Congress decided to refine the war power declaration and essentially put out what has been referred to as the War Powers Act. It was officially called the War Powers Resolution, and it was enacted in November 1973. And President Nixon, who was in charge at the time as the president, actually vetoed it. And when he vetoed it, Congress went ahead and overrode his veto. So essentially what it does is it is designed and purposely designed to limit the president's ability to initiate and escalate, or escalate, I should say, any military actions that are done abroad. There's specific restrictions. It requires the president has to notify Congress after deploying the armed forces. And there are limits as to how long the actual military units can remain engaged without congressional approval. So the idea was in order to avoid a lengthy conflict such as the Vietnam War, which is why it's also known as the Vietnam conflict. But its effectiveness has been like very questionable. Several presidents since then, Reagan in terms of the Iran, the Contra scandal, and Grenada, he put troops into into areas that he shouldn't have, and essentially was accused of violating the War Powers Act. Obama has done it. Clinton has done it. So on and so forth. And so it's kind of one of those things where it was supposed to prevent the president from doing certain things, but most of the presidents have been kind of like, yeah, stop me. So the answer to your question is whether or not he was in violation of it or not. I don't think it really matters. I think Biden would essentially follow the precedent of a bunch of presidents before him, both parties, and pretty much tell Congress to just go pound sand. There is a provision in there, by the way, that military actions that extend up to 60 days are allowed. But if a military action is going to continue after 60 days, that Congress has to provide a declaration of war for it or some other authorization for that. And so, realistically, yeah, I don't think it's really going to matter, to be honest, because nobody's held any presidents accountable for this. So, yeah, it's just... whether he violated it or not, I don't think he's going to care, because let's be honest, Biden really doesn't care about the Constitution or laws anyway, because he's doing a whole bunch of unconstitutional crap as it is. So yeah, the thing about it is that a lot of people really don't understand about the Constitution and that kind of stuff is that there's some question in terms of definition as to when a president or even Congress can declare war. So for an example, when we did the quote war on terror, it wasn't actually another nation state that we were in conflict with. So it wasn't like Congress could actually say, hey, we're at war with, Afghanistan. We were actually at war with a terrorist organization known as ISIS. And so how that would fit into the War Powers Act is somewhat in question in terms of a legal sense. And I really think in terms of things like this particular response that just happened this past weekend to an attack on American citizens is well within the president's power without authorization from Congress, because again, we're essentially sort of defending ourselves. I mean, the argument could be made for that. So I'm not exactly sure that he actually violated it, but even if he did, I don't think it really matters because it's not really enforced. So anyway, I hope that kind of answers your question for it, because yeah, it's and by the way, President Nixon vetoed the law on the grounds that it was unconstitutional and dangerous. And it checks on his duties as the commander-in-chief of the military. So, and I don't know whether he was or wasn't. I mean, I kind of think that Congress could go a different way with it and be well within their congressional power in terms of like tightening up the purse strings on the military, because the military budget, constitutionally speaking, has to be decided that it has to be done every 2 years, which is why we go through military appropriations budgets every 2 years for this. So yeah, they're just, I mean, I don't know, I think it's another one of those laws on the books that just nobody really cares about. Which kind of sucks. I mean, I laugh at it, but it kind of sucks because, again, Ronald Reagan's done it. Bill Clinton's done it. With the Kosovo bombing, Barack Obama ignored it when he did military action in Libya. Yeah. So Oh, and Reagan deployed military personnel to El Salvador for that. So anyway. All right. So that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor, before you leave, make sure you hit that thumbs up button over on Rumble, because of course that helps this channel grow in the Rumble ecosphere. Also, if you don't have a Rumble account yet, head on over and get yourself an account on Rumble, and then of course subscribe to the Whiskey Musings broadcast. I do appreciate it. I watch the numbers. I'm at 640 right now. I would love to get more. I'd love to get 10,000 by the end of 2024. 10,000 followers, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, we will see you Wednesday on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is when I will live stream again. You can also catch the audio portion of the broadcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, which I just added, and Google and several other podcasting places. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And we, again, like I said, we'll see you Wednesday night right here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast channel. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.